Hey everybody out there, this is Modern Day Duelist, aka Seto Kaiba, and today for you guys I'm going to film this video sitting down today. Kind of feeling a little bit under the weather, and as you can see, I'm organizing my current cards and everything currently. Still going through some stuff and whatnot. But today for you guys, I want to talk about the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! As we head into 2020. Now, you may say, well, yeah, that's 2+ months away now, 2.5 months. But a lot's going to happen as we go into 2020. If you guys don't already know, we're going to be getting a new mechanic September of next year. So this time next year, we'll be having a new mechanic, most likely, mind you, in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now you may ask yourself, why is that? Well, if you guys don't know, recently, a couple weeks ago, the end of the Vrains era came to an end in the anime. With the end of the series, to my knowledge, usually pertains to a new mechanic coming out shortly after. I believe that probably sometime in December or January, we are going to hear information about characters for a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, and some type of new mechanic will probably get announced probably sometime early next year. Now, I'm going to say this. A lot of people always hate when new mechanics happen, but there's one thing you have to keep in mind. I think we always, as Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, adapt to new mechanics. We get frustrated at first, but then we always adapt. I think the only mechanic in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where people just did not like the mechanic that much at all was the pendulum mechanic. If you look at a progression of the evolution of Yu-Gi-Oh! Pendulum kind of felt a little bit overbearing when it originally came out, and things of that nature, but it has, that's passed. That's been a couple years now. They fixed the corrections that they needed to correct, and the Link mechanic, like when it first came out, people were kind of like, it's a little bit restrictive because it's a completely new mechanic and things of that nature, but how is it going to evolve? Like, how is this going to work into older decks? Well, for the most part, we've learned to adapt to it. A lot of my older decks that initially, I will say, I thought, oh my gosh, how are they going to adapt to this new mechanic? Konami's righted those wrongs over the course of 2 to 3 years. And I'm very happy to see that, and as they continue into the future, because something you also have to keep in mind here, too, when talking about a future mechanic in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it's going to have to incorporate links in some capacity. The reason for this is, exceeds and synchros, they go in the extra deck, right? Simple as that. They go into your 15-card extra deck slot. Simple as that. As well as, fusions and, your links as well. Your pendulums go in your main deck, so that's fine. That's good, unless they're like a pendulum fusion or synchro, exceptions. But you get what I'm trying to say here. They go in specific spots. Links, they are such a key part in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you want your deck to become focused, to go into the extra deck, which all decks for the most part are focused around nowadays, it has to be able to make a certain type of link to go into set extra deck, or have a very powerful extra deck monster that can, like for example, can't think of something off the top of my head, but can easily make a link of a generic link type, or can make, generic links to help link into other things, or it has its own archetype specific link that's come out since links came out, so an older archetype that has a new link. So that's what I'm trying to say there. It's going to have to incorporate the field, the future field of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the future playmats are going to have to incorporate links. The link zones, unlike pendulums and everything, cannot be moved in the area. And it leads me to believe that with all this setup that Konami's done with links, that possibly the next mechanic is going to be a main deck mechanic or some type of external mechanic. And what I mean by that is it's not going to involve the extra deck, per se. The reason for that is because if you have to involve the extra deck, if it's something as drastically changing as the links were to the field, where it wasn't like pendulums where they just slapped on the side and then eventually moved it to the back row, you physically changed the board with links. You physically had the fundamentals of Yu-Gi-Oh! Changed of how to go into the extra deck. The fundamentals of how to play changed. You couldn't just go into your extra deck and spam out a whole bunch of monsters, which yes, you can do now with links, but not to the extent that we could do pre-links, if you get what I'm trying to say here. So it's going to have to involve links in some capacity, I feel like. So I feel like Konami's best options are something that involves a main deck type of monster, or some type of little mechanic or external thing, maybe like a boss type of monster, a deck monster, you know, something else out there. Maybe, you know, I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. And if it does involve the extra deck has to be bumped up because of that. I feel like completely. I think if we do get another extra deck mechanic, it will have to go up. It will have to be bumped up. There's no getting around it anymore. Links have, I felt like, for most extra decks, gotten to the point where you're really pushing the envelope. And if links, like I've talked about, are going to have to be a part of the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! And an important part, then for that reason, you need to bump up the extra deck to probably maybe 18 or 20. You got to do it, Konami. If you're especially going to come out with another extra deck mechanic. I'm not joking. This has to happen. For older archetypes and for newer archetypes going forward, I feel like. That's going to happen. If it's a main deck type of boss monster type of thing, or a different type of card, then I could see that not happening, but I think going forward that's going to happen. So those are just some initial thoughts on what I think the new mechanic is going to entail, how the game is going to change and develop as we head into 2020. But personally, on a personal note here, I hope it doesn't change too drastically. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! For the most part, besides with the recent ban list that we just had that took care of Mermail, you know, Orcus dot combos, which was kind of annoying, the game is actually in a very healthy place at the moment. Last year at this time, we were going through FTKs and OTKs and bada bing, bada boom, you're dead OTKs. I don't know. But you know what I'm trying to say here. They were happening a lot more at a frequent pace, from Utopia F Zexal OTKs to this, to that, to that, to this. Happening so much within the course of a year and a half last year, to now where things have, yeah, there's some broken combos, there's some broken cards, that's Yu-Gi-Oh! But it's not like, you're dead. You're dead, punk. You know, you have ways of breaking boards, you have ways of getting around combo-oriented decks with Nebaru. Things are, I feel like, a lot more balanced out, and we're in a good place. And if we looked at recently at the local PPG tournament that happened this past, I think a week ago or so, you notice with the new ban list, you know, it wasn't two recent meta decks that topped. It was Mech Knights and, what was it? Infernoids that topped. When was the last time you saw that happen? I don't know, Shaggy. You tell me. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, the game is in a very healthy state right now. I feel like we have enough links that the older decks can function. We're always getting this new support. The support for older decks that are trying to evolve with links is coming out. Karakuri, this and that. You know, there's a bunch of decks out there. It's happening. And I can hope it continues to happen. But Konami always wants to have a new mechanic. And I'm hoping they don't change it too drastically. I hope that it's a mechanic that's good, that does not fundamentally change the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Links. And I'm going to personally say this as someone who worked at a card store and was main part of that job was to teach kids how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And, you know, please, Konami, for the health and longevity of this game, do not add another complex mechanic. I mean, believe me, links are simple enough to understand, but you're adding too many mechanics. There's getting to a point where it's going to get too much and too complicated. Because I can't tell you how many 8 to 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds even were trying to understand Yu-Gi-Oh! Or older players getting back into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! If they were applying themselves, they would be successful. But a lot of times they got discouraged because they were just like, I don't understand this new mechanic at all. I don't get it. It's too complicated. And it's just getting to that point for a lot of returning players, I noticed. And this is just a sample size, so this may not be, I'm not speaking for everything. But from my personal experience running a card shop and working with a card shop, that was the case. Kids were just getting overwhelmed, and people getting back into the game were getting overwhelmed. There wasn't a sense of stability. And the thing that I really like seeing in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which we saw this past weekend, like I said, and the reason I bring up PPG tournament is because we saw older decks topping. That's what I love to see in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! When older decks come back with either new support and top. One of my favorite decks did this from, amazingly back in the day. Gravekeepers, Six Samurai even. Gravekeepers. What did they get new when they first topped their YCS down in Atlanta back, I think it was in 2012? Oh, I remember. They got a card called Gravekeeper's Recruiter, which fundamentally changed how the deck functioned and played. Yeah, what did Six Samurais get? They got a bunch of new support, a new full-fledged legendary Six Samurais, and they did good with that. They got some recent support a year or so ago, and they actually topped some events with it. So I love seeing that with older decks, and I would prefer, personally, and I know a good majority of the community would prefer this as well, when we're heading into the new year with a new mechanic, that Konami, instead of creating a new gimmick, a new mechanic, would just focus, for the love of Pete, on older archetypes like they've been doing and print new support for them. And continue to do what they've been doing. Because I can honestly say, since they focused that this past year on older archetypes and on making sure, the game is healthy a lot more than it was last year, the game has been more successful. I can honestly say, that I've seen a lot of new people into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Recently, over the course of the last couple months. I've seen a lot of players return. I mean, yes, school is back in session, so everybody's doing that. But I can honestly say I've seen a lot of new returning players coming back to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot. And I hope to see that continued success. I can honestly say, if we look at the numbers from this past year, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is growing. It's not dying. I'm glad, thus far, this past year, I have not heard from anyone that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is dying. It's always that, talk around the water cooler. Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is dying! I haven't heard that once this year. That's a very healthy sign. That hasn't happened in a long time. So I hope the continued success of Yu-Gi-Oh! Prevails. I think the game is in a good place. And I don't want to see it be messed up because of a new mechanic. That's what I'm scared of. But I believe it will be fine. We'll adapt. We'll change. We'll get used to the new mechanic if it does come, and we'll continue to play the game that we all love and enjoy. So guys, till next time, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling. Tell me, what are your thoughts on this future mechanic that may happen in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And what are your hopes and dreams for Yu-Gi-Oh! Heading into the new year as we wrap up the rest of 2019? Take care, everybody. I'll see you guys next time.